Okay, so then we open up your paper, you share the screen. Here, share the screen. Okay, and then it says here, by the way, okay, so what did I write here? Let me remind myself. Okay, so, in terms of helping students make their wonderful English even better, is it, basically it's better for me to make suggestions in terms of how you might want to say something that I need to tell you. I would write it because you're not going to learn as much. So somebody told me that, you should have to make suggestions to students about how they might consider saying something and let you choose which one you want, because that way you feel like you own it, and that way you're more likely to learn more rather than just tell you how I would write it as a native speaker. Yeah. So that's why I often put two suggestions down, and you can choose one, in terms of whatever you want to choose. So if I go save here, save as, and then I go save, I'll send it to you again here. So you write the origin. I just want to remind myself what I wrote here. Okay, yeah, that's one thing, right? The paper seems to be says information from only two of the sign factors. Okay. So the origin of a creation of a union between European states begins in the period after the Second World War. So a run-on, a sentence should be no more than 2 text lines in length. Each sentence should be 1 point. So I suggest you cut it there. Yeah. And then I say, okay, so we can just cross that out here. Then we're done with that. So its or integrations objective. Which do you prefer?
Integration.
Okay, yeah. Integrations perspective. Okay, so that's a good one. Integrations perspective objective was to promote economic cooperation. Period. To the extent that the economic independence of all the countries that suffered damage increased, integration would, interdependence would. Which do you prefer?
Independence.
Interdependence would. Oh, right. Interdependence would. Okay. So interdependence would. Decrease or reduce? Which do you prefer?
I prefer reduce.
Reduce. Okay. Oh, reduce. Oh, reduce. Chances of conflict. Okay. So the source there. So you don't need to mix up these sources. You got the footnote here, so you don't need to put this here because you got it down here already.
Yeah, it's because well, in Mexico we also put like the reference and then the page.
Oh, yeah? Like so, that? That's how you do it?
Yeah, it's just to prevent that professor can find the page and he can also read it. So
yeah, but if you got the footnote here, I know to go look at the bottom and I see the citation here, right? So I'm just saying, if you're going to keep under 500 words,
no.
You want to just don't mix up. You don't need to state the information twice because it's already in the footnote. Okay, so that, okay. This union creation is known as the European Union by its acronym EU. Okay. I think okay. I think I have to put in it for the EU, okay? For EU, which you prefer?
Or
no, it or the European Union. Which one do you prefer?
The EU.
All right, the EU. Okay, EU offers peace, prosperity, stability of all member states, overcomes divisions in the continents, promotes economic and social balance and sustainability, as well as facing the challenges of globalization and preserving the diversity of people in Europe. Okay, all right, so so you're going to have to tell me, I mean, you're going to, that sounds really wonderful, and everything, but then of course, why didn't the British, accept that? What was the issue with the British had? Brexit, but that's just something to think about. So I'll let you clean it up here. The main idea of the essay is to publicize the importance and impact of the European Union in the world. Okay, so I just want to get to the point. I don't think you read all that. Okay, so again, if you're gonna put in the footnote, you don't need to state all this information again. And if you have it in the footnote here, looking here. Yeah, you have it here, right? So, of course, the first time you cite it here, right? So I would just put that here. Insert page note footnote. Insert. You don't need this because you already have it. Do you have a page number? Oh, this is a site. Okay, this is a quotation from the book, right? This so needs to put in quotation marks like that. Okay. And if you just copy it, you need to have this quotation marks here, because that's an indicator that it's not being rephrasing your words. You're copying it word for word. And I don't know what the page number is. What's the page number? Go back and check. But you got it here. So you can just put it here. And then because I'm not, these don't count, this doesn't count to the word limit. So that's one way to keep the word limit down. Okay. And then you need page number. Is that page 48? I don't know. Okay. And I'm gonna clean that up. Okay. And so we can put out here. Okay, yeah, so you don't need to, this again, you don't really know all this. I mean, one of the nice things about having the word limit is that when you have a word limit, you really, I have to write papers too, right? So typically, one journal that I get things published in, they say the body of the paper cannot be longer than 8,000 words, and that means every word has to count. So that's why I put the word limit here, because if you have a word limit, you really have to know exactly what's in your brain. What are you trying to say? What is in your thought that you have to refine very specifically in terms of words in order to to say exactly what you want to say in order to make every word count to stay under the word limit. So that's why the word limit is kind of, that's not at least one of the reasons why I include the word limit. So in the year immediately after the Second World War, Europe was in ruins, stripped of all power, and divided between two adversarial or hostile.
Hostile.
Hostile. Okay. Hostile world powers. The United States of America and Soviet Union and Russia. However, despite the fact that Europe was under the ruble, it rose from the ashes, making it ever today a richer continent, important center of economic. Again, you don't really need to mix these citation styles. You got it here already. So. Yeah, where's the author? Right, you got this words.
Yeah, it's because in that page it doesn't appear the author, so I don't know how to put it without the author.
Okay, you say. Well, you don't need to put anything. You just got the source here already. If there is no page,
yeah,
this is the source. Okay, so sometimes I don't have it. An author. Sometimes it's just an organizational statement.
Yeah.
So it's the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Yeah, that's not uncommon. Okay, so like that. Thanks to the birth of the Union. Yeah, I think you already said this. You had, so you don't need to say it again because you already said it once before.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. This name has brought positive effects to most European countries, to their people, and to the world since 1970. Peace. Okay. Okay. Okay, so this may be true. I'm just wondering then why doesn't Russia love the European Union? That's always the theme that keeps coming back. If the European Union is a strategy for peace, then why
Russia
it's got such a problem with it?
Yeah. Oh, it's a question?
Huh?
It's a question?
Yeah.
Oh, can you repeat it? I thought you would.
Why does Russia see European Union in the positive way that you describe it here?
Because I think that Russia doesn't think about having like a peace between states, because well, I don't know how to explain, but Russia is like thinking in more power and power and power, and don't think about the other like countries that they want like a unification.
You think America doesn't do that?
Yeah, well, I don't think so.
America's a nice country.
Yeah, but I think like they want like more power and power and power, and they don't think like, okay, what is the benefits of having like a peace between the countries? So the only thing in this case that especially the president of Russia thinks that, okay, I want more interesting leaving behind peace. So yeah,
Mhm.
so I think that he doesn't believe in peace. He wants more and more power.
And the European Union doesn't?
It does, but it doesn't like have the not always peace needs to be perfect. Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's because I don't know how to explain in English.
So, I mean, I guess, I mean, insofar as, do you think that in Moscow, the Putin administration, the Putin regime sees a big difference, any kind of significant difference between the United States and the European Union? Or is the European Union basically just the agent of America?
I think the second one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so is the European Union and European Union expansion a danger to Russia, or is it a danger to Russia's pride or danger to Russia's defense?
I think the pride. Right?
Pride. You
Yeah.
think it's probably pride?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I think that is the one part of.
One part of it, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, do you think that the Putin administration, the Putin regime in Moscow might see that basically, if that the Europe,
Well, I don't know, but there is like an idea that Russia thinks that the European Union like wants to control every member state. So I think that Russia administration and even the presidency thinks that European Union thinks that it's going to control Russia.
well, then how would you say if the European Union is so powerful and strong, why couldn't it keep Britain in the European Union?
Well, because I think that British thinks that it's going to control everything instead of leaving Great Britain like taking their own decisions. So I think that part they think like, well, we need to leave European Union because we want to control our problems.
Yeah, but then if the European Union is not such a powerful force that it can control Britain, why is Russia so viewing the European Union as such a terrible, dangerous, powerful actor? I mean, it couldn't keep Britain in. You know.
Well, yeah. Well, continue.
No, I mean, basically, because I mean, from my point of view, they basically think the right. If you look at what they're, this is problematic because people say, well, the Russians are lying. But you know, insofar as they view that basically, the European Union basically is an agent for the United States. That sure, Britain leaves the European Union, but so what? It's still going to do what the Americans tell it. It's still going to serve the ultimate objective of spreading Washington's dominance with London playing a supporting role for its favorite offspring, the United States, because it was a creation of the British Empire originally, and that the European Union basically is the economic and political side of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which is basically American economic hard and military power. And that the European Union is so. But why is that a problem for Russia? Is that a danger to Russian security, or just to Russian pride?
I think both.
But
yeah.
what's more important? Danger to Russian security, or what's more important? Defense or pride?
I think pride. More like pride. I think like that part.
Well, what do people who criticize the Americans say? Look, the Russians see that when the Soviet Union collapsed, there were some allies of Russia, the Soviet Union in the Middle East that had allied with the Soviet Union during the Cold War because the Americans were allied with Israel. And so America allied with Israel, so the enemies of Israel allied with the Soviet Union. And the enemies of Israel were like the so-called frontline, like Syria under the Assad regime and Saddam Hussein in Iraq, and Muammar Gaddafi in Libya. And that these regimes when the Soviet Union declined and disintegrated, the Americans then encouraged, and after Americans encouraged political Islamists in Afghanistan to kill Russian Soviet soldiers in the 1980s, the Americans encouraged political Islam, they exploited political Islam in Afghanistan to defeat the Soviet Union. And then the Americans destroyed Iraq under Saddam Hussein, eliminated him, and basically occupied Baghdad. I mean, not directly, but in the sense that they put their own friends in power in Baghdad, so that now Baghdad is now part of America's hegemony. And they are trying to do the same thing in Syria until the Russians sent their own soldiers into Syria. And they destroyed and removed Muammar Gaddafi's regime in Libya. And now Libya is a chaotic place where, again, the Islamists have more opportunity to play and grow. And this is all happening not too far from the borders of Russia. Aside from Central Asia, I mean, there's still tens of millions of Muslims who live in Russia. When you can count, in terms of Chechnya and other republics, not talking about Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan, those former, but those that the Americans basically they have basically created political Islam, and they are aiming to basically remove anybody who's an obstacle in however they can, anybody who stands in the way of American control and hegemony. And that now the Americans are focused on Iran and trying to remove that regime because that regime dares to stand up to the United States. The Americans are trying to overthrow Maduro in Venezuela because he dares to stand in the United States. The Americans have always been trying to destroy the communist regime in Cuba because it dares stand up to the United States. So anybody who dares resist American economic and military domination, they get targeted and even destroyed. And so Russia's choice is basically to submit and become a minor actor in the world, like Italy or Poland, or maybe not so bad like Italy, but because they got lots of nuclear weapons, but basically a second-rank power. I mean, like France or Britain. I mean, France and Britain, they got nuclear weapons too, but they don't decide the direction of NATO. It's the United States that does. And so, and of course the Americans, they lost in Afghanistan, but what did they do when they lost in Afghanistan? They left, and they left behind a beehive that they stirred up, and the Taliban are back in power, and the Islamic State is rising there, and left this to deal with for Russia and China to deal with. I mean, China actually has a border with Afghanistan. So, I mean, I guess I'm trying to understand how it is that the Russians can actually claim that NATO is not just, American hegemony in NATO is not just hurting their pride. They want to be a first-rank power up there with Beijing and Washington and Moscow, and they want to they think it's a threat. How is it a threat? How is it a threat to Russian national security? And they might say that because if you don't submit the way Germany, Germany pretty much does what America wants. France does what America wants. They all do what America wants. I mean, when do they really seriously resist the United States? And that's what Russia's supposed to do. And Russia, therefore, supposed to, so there isn't, obviously, there's more than one motivation for any country's foreign policy. More than one. But there's a rank, and some of them are more important than others. So the question is the relative ranking among those different levels, and why is the European Union seen as a danger? Because I don't think they see the European Union as a real autonomous third or fourth power in the world. Another potential balancer against Washington and Beijing. It's basically the smiley face side, of NATO, right? And can that change? Well, it's too late now. I mean, you see, the Europeans have lined up with the Americans, and with this crisis in Ukraine, it's just confirming what if this is true, what people are painting this picture of the world I'm describing. They're going to say, see, we told you. They talk about being civilian, the European Union talks about being a civilian superpower, a new way of international relations. But when push comes to shove, they line up behind Washington. And they've always lined up behind Washington. And that's why, so what can be done now? I'm really concerned. Of course, not just because people are horribly suffering and dying by the thousands in Ukraine, but this thing can really escalate. Particularly now, the Americans are openly saying we're going to send artillery. We're sending big artillery pieces to the Ukrainians, and Ukrainians, they want it. They want to fight. They don't want to give up. They're nationalists too. But from the Russian point of view, that it just confirms that basically America wants Russia to lose. That they want Russia to basically become a second-rank power, and that means forget about their home, about who they are. That Ukraine belongs to Russia, that Russia was born in Ukraine, that Ukraine is this artificial country created by Lenin and Stalin in the 20s because they wanted to create this thing called the Soviet Union and try to convince everybody living in the Soviet Union, this new country in the 1920s, that this is not just some new version of the Russian Empire. Because that's the suspicion. This is all bullshit. This is still the Russian Empire with a nice, communist picture frame, right? Yeah. And so, no, it's not. See, and this is the problem in Yugoslavia when I was there 30 years ago. The communists did the same thing after World War II. Tito was acting like Stalin until he broke with Stalin in 1948. Okay, Serbia is this big country. Croatia, Slovenia, they're all small. So we have to convince these people that Yugoslavia is not a Serbian empire. And so they divided up Serbia. They put chunks of the Serb people within Croatia and Bosnia, and they made autonomous oblasts in Serbia with the Vojvodina and Kosovo. And this, if you're a Serb nationalist, it's not fair. It's not fair. It's not fair. It's not fair. Kosovo is art. And so, and that's what the Russians have been saying, that basically these countries that were created by the communists as artificial borders that didn't really mean anything when it was the communist Soviet Union under one party. So like Khrushchev, when he was the dictator after Stalin died from 56 to 64, he decided to give Crimea to Ukraine. And nobody cared because who cares? It was all part of the Soviet Union. And then, oh my God, Ukraine becomes independent 30 years ago. Oh my God, it's like, you're Mexican, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what the Alamo means to you, but like, I remember when there was an Associated Press report came out 8 years ago. There was one newspaper reporter for the Associated Press. He says, you got to understand, for the Russians, Crimea is to them what Alamo was to America. So if you know anything about American nationalism, American romantic bullshit stereotyping of the nationalism, the Alamo is this incredible episode of valor and courage in which they were defeated by Santa Anna, but that corrupt Mexican dictator that the Americans then conquered and fought and then took, and that was a great episode in American identity formation. And that's what the Russians do Crimea. When they were defeated, the charge of the Light Brigade, during the Crimean War. Tolstoy wrote a short story called Sebastopol about Crimea. To them, it's like, and I was really impressed by that art. I could find it. I'm sure I could find it again. But America just can't understand this. And so, these borders were drawn by the communists to try to stabilize the Soviet Union, together with fists, some money payments to people, do what I say, and if you do, your life will become good for you. And also to divide up the Russian Empire. Like, for example, under the Soviet Union, the Russian Republic and the 16 republics of the Soviet Union, Russia was the only republic not allowed to have a communist party. So there was a Kazakh communist party, a Ukrainian communist party, a Georgian communist party, a Lithuanian communist party, a Turkmen communist party, but Russia was not allowed to have its own communist party. Russia was not allowed to have its own republic security agency, the KGB. There wasn't a Russian security KGB. There was the Soviet KGB, right? And this was all to try to persuade everybody, this is not a new Russian empire. and they make Crimea, Ukraine really big with the borders, and they give, Khrushchev gives Crimea to Ukraine in 56. And then the Soviet Union breaks apart. And then this thing, the European Union, is trying to, what did the Russians say? Brainwash the people in Ukraine to believe that they're Ukrainians. When this wasn't this, this was
Russian. Yeah.
And this leads to fury. And what do you do with traitors? People forget who they are, who kill. I mean, I saw this in Yugoslavia. Like, you Bosniak Muslims, you used to be Serbs, but you betrayed your people 500 years ago by converting to Islam because you wanted the benefits of serving the Turkish Ottoman master. Hatred. And I'm really afraid that this is basically we're going to see basically they're going to do ethnic cleansing. The Russians are not going to stop at Donbass. They're going to try to take Kiev. They're going to drive off these people that don't want to be in Russianized Ukraine and kick them out and move them to the West, which they're already happening. They're already moving. And I don't think they're going to try to take Lviv because that's the traditional area that's where Ukrainian nationalism has its capital. And the part of Ukraine that Stalin added Ukraine at the end during World War II, that used to be part of Austrian Empire before World War I. But that means tens of millions of people are going to be forced to move or die, like they did what the Serbs did in Bosnia. So, and why didn't the European Union stopping this? The European Union is supposed to be about peace, and now we're going to have genocide, and the European Union, rightly or wrongly, is somehow played some role in this. And it's easy just to say, "Oh, it's because Putin's a jerk. That's it. It's his fault." No, it's not going to. That's not going to solve these problems. Putin is not also the most extreme element in Russia. He's in the middle. He's got people to the right of him that he's balancing. So it's just basically, I mean, like a tragedy. I mean, in a lot of ways, with this European Union, people that study the European Union, they really like they want this to work. It's going to finally solve the problem of war in Europe after these incredible, horrible crimes of Nazi Germany, World War II, and now it's happening in Ukraine, and somehow the European Union has played some role in that. Not intentionally, but because you could say, could they ever have stood up to the Americans? I mean, how are you, Germany, are you ever going to stand up to the Americans after what the Germans did in World War II? De Gaulle tried to stand up a bit to the Americans. He was the one that created the force de frappe, the French nuclear weapons. He tried, but then he passed. And then after he passed, and then France, they left NATO. They left the military command structure of NATO under de Gaulle. They kicked out all the American bases out of France. They've been there since World War II. But but then they reapplied to join NATO in the 90s because they wanted to, they wanted to have more influence over the Americans. So they're now back in. So anyway, do you have any questions?
No.
So, I mean, one of the reasons why I like having these meetings because I get to think through my own thoughts and come up with ideas for my own work. So that's why I blather on, blah, 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 because I'm trying to think through things. So what's your email?
SM.
SM?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay, here you go. Okay, so I'll send this to you. Okay, so here. So which university are you coming from in Mexico?
Anahuac.
Where's it at?
It's in Querétaro, close to the capital of Mexico City.
Because we've had different students from different universities. You're the first one I've had from, I think, from that university. We have students from Baja. We have students from other universities, but I think you're the first because I've had 3 or 4 Mexican students at the time here. Yeah. Is it private or state university?
Private.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it Catholic?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, they really work with the Catholic side of this. So we have universities from Catholic universities in France and Catholic University and other, I think I had students from Catholic University. Uruguay. No, Ecuador. She was from Ecuador. I guess it kind of works in terms of, building ties with those schools, but yeah. Okay, well, any other questions or?
No, it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So good luck with everything.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you. So to the final midterm, 100 words, right?
500.
500. Okay.
Okay, not including the footnotes. Not including the footnotes.
Yeah.
Okay.
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 Thank you.
Bye.